So this morning, as we conclude our Peace of Mind sermon series, where we've been looking at emotional, mental health battles that, to a certain degree, we all wrestle with, I've got a question for you, and the question is, how are you doing? And it's a question that at times can be a simple question, and yet it's sometimes very hard to answer. Because you don't know if you should be honest and tell someone how you're really doing, or if you should just kind of put this mask over what's going on and act and pretend like everything's okay. And for many of you, I don't know where you're at in this spectrum. But what I do know is that no matter where you're at, the answer is going to be found today in Scripture. As we look at what do we do when our tank is empty? When we're stressed out, when our stress ultimately leads us to being burned out. Maybe you've been there, maybe you are on your way there, maybe you're there now. But the reality is that we all face pressure. There's pressure from all sides of life. A study from 2021 revealed that more than half of the workforce in America feels burned out because of their job demands. But not only are there job demands, there's also this social pressure that we have to face. The pressure of saying yes to a lot of good things, of having a full calendar and schedule and being involved in good volunteer opportunities. And then for the younger students in here, it's the social pressure of fitting in at your school. There's the financial pressure of how do I balance a budget when inflation is really high. There's the health pressures of maybe you're helping navigate aging parents, or maybe you yourself are aging, and what is your body telling you? There's the pressure of culture, which is only going to intensify over the course of the next 6 months as we get closer and closer to the elections. There's pressures from all sides. It can weigh on us. It can wear us down to where we're left feeling like there's nothing left. And we start running on fumes. And for those of us who can associate with that, it's a tough place to be. The stress weighs on us. And as we talk about stress, we're talking about this short-lived pressure that is related to a temporary project or event. You're stressed about the thing that you have to do next week, the deadline that you have to meet. You know, in some ways, I feel stress to a certain degree every week as I'm preparing a message that has to be ready by 8:30 on Sunday morning. There's other stresses that may be induced tonight. Just by a quick show of hands, who's going for the Kansas City Chiefs? Okay, a couple of you. Who's going for the 49ers? A few more of you. Who's not really, who knows, who didn't know that there was a Super Bowl tonight? Anybody? A few of us, okay. Yeah, then some people just watch the game to watch the commercials. And yet there's going to be some stress there because your team may win, it may lose, and in the final moments, hopefully it's a close game and you're on the edge of your seat. But stress, short-lived pressure. But then what happens when that short-lived pressure turns into this chronic thing? And that's when we get to this point of an empty tank, this point of burnout where the functions of life may continue, but the joy of life is gone. It's the challenge of navigating life when you feel empty inside. When it's just too hard, you don't see relief in sight, that you feel hopeless. And we end up finding this place of being empty because of a few reasons. And one of the reasons is, I missed this one. Your body takes a hit. Physically, emotionally, mentally. Here's what happens. Physically, your body gets fatigued. You can't sleep, or you just have no energy. It's tough to actually physically do things, and often what happens is we turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms. But then mentally, things happen in our brain that make it harder for us to focus, to remember things, to make decisions. We live and are more susceptible to a state of desperation and fear. And then emotionally, we lose confidence. We begin doubting ourselves. We begin telling ourselves stories about who we are that aren't necessarily true because we're mentally, physically, emotionally exhausted, and we just can't anymore. But we get here because we either run ourselves into the ground, we build no margin into our lives, and it's just every day after day of a full schedule and full plate. You feel as if you're constantly playing catch-up. Or then we try to do it all on our own. We tell ourselves that it's all under control. I've got it under control. I'm managing, I'm balancing, when in reality you're falling apart. But you try to keep it all together. Or you begin to dwell on the negative. Every situation, every encounter, you begin to see the negative side of things. Oh, that's not going to work out because here's why. Oh, I didn't like that person because they gave me the stink eye. It's who they are. It becomes a part of who they are, and it just empties us. And so the question is, how are you? How are you relationally? How are you physically? How are you spiritually? Emotionally? I mean, answer this question honestly. You don't have to shout out your answers, but really reflect on this. Because it's okay to not be okay. But what's not okay is for you to pretend like everything is okay. And as I was perusing social media this week, I stumbled across this picture. And it made me stop and think. If you don't make time for your wellness, you'll be forced to make time for your illness. If you don't make time for your wellness, you'll be forced to make time for your illness. I mean, and this is the reality. When you run on fumes for so long, your body begins to shut down. You begin to have these emotional attacks, these panic attacks, and you have to deal with it one way or the other. And so for those of us who maybe are feeling empty or know someone who's feeling empty, what can we do? The good news is that Jesus offers us something better than living life on the fumes of an empty tank. He offers us life and healing and restoration and hope. But most importantly, he offers us rest. And so God gives us two answers. The first answer is this: it's the Sabbath. And it's this Judaic, Israelite covenant command that's part of the 10 Commandments. And it says this, that remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, for in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them, but he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. So the Sabbath was instituted by God because he knows human nature. He knows human nature in that you're just going to go and go and go until the wheels fall off, essentially. And so after 6 days of creation, he rested. And here's what that means. It means that he took a breath in. So for 6 days, God is breathing life into existence. He's breathing creation into being. On the 6th day, he literally breathes his breath into the lungs of Adam. And then on day 7, not because he needed to, but to set an example, to be a blessing for us, as a way for us in our bodies to be refreshed, he says, I'm going to take a breath. I'm going to rest. Because you need it. It's important. And so what he does is he sets apart this day to rest, to take it easy, to stop pursuing progress and success, to remember who God is and what he's done for you, what he's done in the world around you, and to worship him. And the Jewish tradition, the Jewish Sabbath, is at the end of the week. You work 6 days and then you rest. For us as Christians, the Lord's Day, which kind of coincides with Easter and the resurrection, it's the beginning of the week. And so for us as God's people, we come together, we gather, we take this break in our day to remember who God is and what He's done, and then it's from this place that we go to work. It's the same thing for Adam. God created him on day 6, and then on day 7, what's the very first thing that Adam really does? Is he rests, and then he gets to work. Rest is so important. It's stopping the pursuit. It's breathing in. It's taking this step of faith that says, ultimately, God, I am dependent on you. And I'm going to trust that in my 6 days of work that you will do more for me than I can do for myself in 7. And I get that, maybe taking a whole day off is tough. But finding pockets and breaks throughout the week where you just say, God, I want to sit in your presence. I want you to speak to me. I want to hear from you today, God. I need you to fill me so that I can go do ultimately what you have called me to do on this earth, where you have put me in this moment of my life. I was actually talking to my mother-in-law this week over coffee, and she said, I wonder how, people in the Bible actually heard from God. And we got to this point where it's like we almost wonder if we have to turn down the frequency of the noise from culture and society and sound so that we can hear God's voice more clearly. And this is what the Sabbath allows us to do. It allows us to intentionally pause, to say, God, I trust you. I need you to fill me and restore to me the spirit of joy in my life. For those of you who have cell phones, it's the reason why every once in a while you have to do a hard reset on your phone. Because this cache and memory builds up and your phone can start lagging. And it's not until you hard reset it, just start it over, that all that's cleared and your phone starts working the right way again. Our bodies are designed to rest. They need rest. And so we have the Sabbath, intentional time in the presence of God, but then we also have this invitation from Jesus. This invitation that says, come to me. Come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Jesus has this invitation for all of us who are feeling weary, who are tired, who are exhausted, who are empty on the inside. Yeah, we might be getting things done on the outside, but inside there's no joy. He says, come to me. He says, come to me, those who are going through challenges right now, who are going through battles, who are wrestling with things that are weighing you down. I want you to come to me. For those who ultimately need rest. Not the rest that you get from a 10-minute power nap in the afternoon, but the kind of rest that truly restores your soul. That says, even in the midst of fill in the blank that you're going through, I've got peace of mind because it's God with me. That's who He's calling all of us. When life is good, when life is challenging, He says, come to me because you will find true rest. It's in my presence that you find true rest. And then He says, take up my yoke, which is easy. And now, for those of us who aren't farmers in the room, or at least farmers who don't use tractors, the yoke is a piece of wood that would ultimately fasten two animals together. It's not a single yoke, it's two animals together. And this is what William Barclay, he's talking about this is what Jesus is talking about. He says this: in Palestine, ox yokes were made of wood, The ox was brought and the measurements were taken. The yoke was then roughed out, and the ox was brought back to have the yoke tried on. The yoke was carefully adjusted so that it would fit well and not gall the neck of the patient beast. The yoke was tailor-made to fit the ox. You see, this is the yoke that Jesus is offering us. It's this tailor-made yoke that ultimately fastens us to Jesus, so that together with Jesus we get to walk with our burdens. We get to walk through our burdens. We get to learn from him, learn his approach, learn his peace, his strength. We get to spend time with him. And as we are yoked to Jesus with whatever it is that we're going through, it's not that the burdens go away, but it's that we don't have to go at it alone. It's a great imagery. Jesus right next to you, fastened together with a yoke that is perfectly made for you, and you're walking together through whatever it is you're going through. And another way to think about it is, and maybe some of you are familiar with this, but it's a poem that was very popular many years ago. I don't know if it's quite as popular today, but it's this story of a man who was having a dream. And on his dream, there he was walking down this beautiful beach. And as he's walking down the beach, he sees 4 feet or 4 footprints, and at times he sees 1 footprint. And as he's walking, he sees different scenes and moments from his life. Some good, some sad and difficult and trials. And then he sees Jesus. And as he gets to Jesus, he says, Jesus, why when I was going through the saddest times? Why when life was the hardest and I was struggling and I was empty on the inside, is there only 1 set of footprints? Where were you? And then Jesus says, child, it was during those sad moments, those difficult moments, those times when you didn't have the strength to get through, that I was carrying you through. And that's this reminder for us that Jesus, he is, yes, pulling alongside of us, but he's also carrying us through with his strength, with his presence, with his peace, so that no matter what's going on, through the good, through the challenging, through the horrible, you are not alone. And so I'll ask this question one more time. How are you? How are you? Be honest with yourself. And maybe you're doing great and that's awesome. But maybe you're struggling. Maybe you feel completely empty on the inside. And find hope and assurance, confidence, knowing that Jesus is right there with you, walking through this with you. He's carrying you through this. And then ask yourself, what do you need? What do you need? And for some of you, you may need different rhythms, different habits, different daily practices. For some of you, you may need a different pace. Say thanks, but not right now. Now's not a good time for me to do that or to commit to that. Maybe it's you need time to yourself to refill, to recharge. Maybe you need community, people who are going to walk with you. Maybe it's in the form of professional counselors, doctors who are helping you. But what do you need? Because here's what you definitely need. You definitely need Jesus. And not the knowledge of Jesus, not just understanding who he is, but truly sitting in his presence and allowing his Spirit to speak to you directly, to fill your heart, to give you peace, to give you wisdom on what's that next step that I need to take. For the people who aren't struggling right now, what's the next step that I need to help my friend take? The person I love and care about, to get them to where ultimately Jesus wants them to be, in a place of wellness, a place of wholeness. And then do it. so as we close out this sermon series, here's the last little bit of hope. Rest in him. Trust in him. Walk with him. And receive his peace. God's strength, God's peace be with you today and always. Amen.